Dragon Quest VII has always been one of those super underrated gems for me. I have always found that in the series, Dragon Quest VII is frowned upon for its length and its pacing and some of the other things it does. But it's a game that felt almost too big and too tangled to ever get a true modern overhaul. But here we are. Dragon Quest VII Reimagined is just around the corner, and I got to play 3 hours of it at an event that Square Enix invited me to in New York City. Now, if you know Dragon Quest VII, you know it's kind of a milestone of a game. It's a time travel story. It's a world restoration story. It's a party building story. And also it's a game that, depending on who you ask, is either this unforgettable slow burn epic, or it's this disjointed, super long, overly convoluted game. And for me, I think it's a happy medium right in between. My history with Dragon Quest VII is I really wasn't into the series all that much. I played Dragon Quest VIII and enjoyed it, but I really didn't have a ton of experience with Dragon Quest at all. And on the 3DS, Dragon Quest VII came out, and I became massively obsessed with this game. I could not stop playing Dragon Quest VII on the 3DS. I probably put well over 100 hours into this game, and I loved every minute of it. All of its little quirks really resonated with me, and I love the characters, I love the music, I love the story. I just loved all the vibes of Dragon Quest VII. And so when Dragon Quest VII Reimagined was announced, I was ecstatic, so hyped, and I'm so much looking forward to playing it. And I'm really happy to be able to bring you guys my initial impressions of the game. I got about 3 hours with it among 2 different slices of the remake. So with all that said, let's get into it. The original Dragon Quest VII begins on a small island where the whole world seems to be just a single piece of land. It's a peaceful place, slow moving, but very special. And then you discover this ancient temple, these mysterious stone tablets, and suddenly you're pulled into the past, into the forgotten lands, and the story just gets wild. There were 2 parts of the demo. There was a demo set later in the game. I had a full party, a dungeon to explore, and a massive boss fight. We had a limited time, so I jumped into this portion of the demo first, so I could be sure to see it all the way through, and boy am I glad I did. You go through the Wetlock story portion, and to just give you a more generic overview in an aim not to spoil anything for those who haven't played this game, the town gets flooded, and you need to explore a dungeon and make your way to the boss, who is the ultimate cause of the flooding. This was actually one of my favorite parts in the original game, so I was super excited to experience this in the demo. I make my way through the dungeon, and I am blown away by how this game feels and the upgrades here. I mean, it's truly incredible. Moments from the original or even the 3DS remake feel more alive than ever. That boss fight there at the end was a long and hard-fought battle that felt immensely rewarding and required a lot of thought and preparation to overcome. I've been playing a lot of these classic HD 2D Dragon Quest remakes lately, and I love them so much, but I really miss the playstyle and feel of Dragon Quest XI, and I have to say, Dragon Quest VII Reimagined is very close to Dragon Quest XI in a lot of aspects. It really feels like we are playing a brand new, modern Dragon Quest game here, and hopefully that shows through in the gameplay I put on the screen here. After finishing that portion of the demo, I jumped into the next demo. This is much earlier in the game, but during a pretty iconic point in the story, we go to Emberdale to play through the volcano and roam around that town and experience the Festival of the Flame. This is such an interesting and great slice of the game for a demo because it encapsulates the vibes and the feel of the Dragon Quest VII game and what they're going for. I really felt like this portion of the game really gives us a good look at how the new one keeps that general warmth and comfort that made Dragon Quest VII one of my favorite games in the series. Now, here's where I really want to get into some of the things that really stood out to me in the time with the game. Let's talk a bit about the art style first. This remake has a very distinct look. It's not HD 2D, not hyper-detailed realism, but something closer to a miniature diorama brought to life. Characters almost resemble small figurines, and environments look like handcrafted sets. It's stylized, it's warm, and it gives the whole world a tactile, physical charm. What I really love about that direction is that it leans into the series' identity instead of trying to reinvent it. Dragon Quest has always had a certain homey, almost storybook warmth to it, and this diorama look embraces that and expands on it in really creative ways. It's colorful without being loud, it's nostalgic without feeling dated, and detailed in a way that feels intentional rather than overwhelming. And this isn't just an aesthetic coat of paint. The new visuals actually help the structure of the game. Areas are readable at a glance, the lighting helps guide your eye, and everywhere you go, there's this subtle sense that the world was really crafted with care. Instead of feeling like a gigantic sprawl, the world feels very curated, which for a game with this much scope is very essential in my opinion. One of the biggest changes is the simple fact that now exploration uses visible enemies, and weaker monsters can be bypassed or defeated instantly. This alone does a lot for pacing. One of the challenges of the original game is that even the simplest trip across a field could become slow just because encounters just took so much time, especially early on in the game. Now you keep your flow, you choose your battles, you decide where you want to grind. Overall, this feels a lot more like Dragon Quest XI in a multitude of ways, like I mentioned earlier. Movement's also faster, actions are snappier, and menus are more modern. There's a fluidity to exploration now that should make even familiar areas feel more fun to revisit. Now moving on to one of my favorite additions, and that's the vocation system and what they've done here. If you love Dragon Quest job systems, and 7 was already one of the most elaborate in the series, this remake expands on that identity in a really cool way. Vocational mastery returns, but you now have the ability to equip 2 vocations at once, letting you mix traits and abilities and passive bonuses. It's not trying to reinvent the wheel here, but instead making builds feel more elaborate, and I had a ton of fun toying around with this during my demo. The idea of creating hybrid roles, not just leveling jobs one after another, but actually combining their traits, makes party planning feel way more purposeful. Not to mention, you can just go into the menu anytime and change them on the fly. In the original, you used to have to go back to a specific place and change jobs. It was a pain, so this is a really, really welcome addition. And while there are some new vocational options, what matters most is how this system is presented. It's cleaner, it's easier to understand, it respects both veteran tinkering and newcomer approachability, and that balance is really rare in JRPG remakes. This works really well, and I just can't wait to go all out experimenting with this. Now let's talk about the story, specifically the pacing. The original Dragon Quest VII is enormous, and that's not an exaggeration. It's one of the longest JRPGs ever made, even today. Reimagined doesn't throw away that scale, but it reshapes it. I didn't get to experience a lot of this in the demo since these were slices of the game, but based on everything that's come out around the game these last couple of months, I think it's safe to say that we are in for something very different in story structure and pacing. The team has made a deliberate effort to streamline the narrative. That doesn't mean they've gutted it or shortened the emotional beats. It means moments that didn't directly strengthen the journey have been reworked, condensed, or removed, so the main through line feels way more focused. What really excites me about this is the potential for the game to feel more cohesive. The original had incredible narrative highs, moments you remember years later, but the path between them could feel very uneven. This remake seems to take those memorable beats and give them more room to shine. One of the big opportunities in a remake like this is deepening the party dynamic, and from what's been shown here, that seems to be the focus. Character scenes have more motion, more expression, more physical storytelling. Events play out with new direction, new camera work, and in some cases, expanded dialogue. This doesn't turn Dragon Quest VII into a cinematic RPG. That's not the series' identity, but it gives characters a little more presence, a little more emotional grounding. And for a story built so much around the idea of rebuilding a broken world, that human element really matters. So what makes Dragon Quest VII Reimagined stand out in the landscape of modern remakes? For me, it's that it respects the heart of the original, its ambition, its warmth, its more eccentric structure, while finally acknowledging the parts that made the experience harder than it needed to be. It doesn't feel like a remake trying to fix a classic, it feels like one trying to understand it just a little bit better. The original game is one of the most unique JRPG journeys I have ever experienced, and this remake aims to present that journey in a way that feels intentional from start to finish. Also, this might be the first time 7 becomes genuinely approachable for newcomers. Its reputation for length has always been a bit of a barrier, and this new version seems determined to make this scale feel exciting instead of more intimidating. As someone who's spent a lot of time with JRPGs, one thing I value, especially with games like this, is that feeling of discovery. Not just discovering lands or more lore, but discovering the kind of feel and vibes of the overall game, the different towns you stumble into, the different character moments you experience. The original game had that in spades, even if sometimes you had to dig for it. With Reimagined, that feeling seems more accessible than ever. The art invites you in. The pacing lets you settle into the world without feeling overwhelmed or exhausted, and the mechanics encourage experimentation. As far as previews go, this is one of the more promising remakes I've seen in a really long time. I got emotional playing this, starting this up, hearing the music, seeing my favorite characters in a new light. It was a special experience. Thank you again to Square Enix for inviting me out to this preview. It truly made for a special experience that I will never forget. Let me know in the comments below what you think of this remake here. Have you played Dragon Quest VII before, or is this your first time? I look forward to reading all your thoughts, and until next time, I'm out.